Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Weekly Reads. So I didn't film anything yesterday. I was a bit exhausted from putting together an island on Wednesday for my mom, and then putting together a TV stand yesterday. And by the time everything was said and done, my hands were starting to blister. So, yeah. So, as far as what I've been watching and reading, I've had a so-so week, I would say. So, starting off with what I've watched this past week, on last Friday, I watched Street Food Asia, which I thought was really good. And then on Saturday, I started The Punisher, the one of the Marvel TV series on Netflix. I didn't particularly care for it that much. The Punisher is one of my least favorite superheroes. Well, heroes, if you can even call him that. I've never been interested in him, and I thought the series so far has been just a rehash of the Punisher's role in the second season of Daredevil, and it's just covering the same territory that maybe other major Punisher stories could have been adapted. And then on Sunday, I continued with Ice Fantasy, which I'm still really enjoying and having a ball watching. Just love that show to pieces. I did have some criticism about the villain's plan in these episodes I watched. So basically, by this point, the Fire Tribe are trying to collect all of these ice crystals to prevent the last prince of the Ice Tribe from reassembling this defensive wall that would prevent the Fire Tribe from invading or something. And basically, the princess of the Fire Tribe, Yanda, who's been the primary hunter hunting the Ice Prince, is told to follow him to the city of the Dreamers clan. Well, it just so happens that her father's made an arrangement with the head dreamer that he would basically use his powers to subvert all of the other immortal tribe leaders, to basically turn over their ice crystals, and then basically the head dreamer would also place Kazuo, the Ice Prince, in a dream. So it's like, why exactly is she there? Why exactly is she go into the dream? It's like, it doesn't make much sense. I mean, unless later on it's revealed that her brother set her up or something, and to ruin her reputation or something. But it's like, why not order her to go to one of the other immortal tribes to collect their ice crystals when they're okay. Well, but I'm still really enjoying it. It's just I have a penchant for picking apart the schemes of villains. So, moving on to what I've read, I started my Saturday reads, since I usually my reading's usually Saturday to Friday, but anyway. So, my reading for Saturday, I started A History of the World with the Women Put Back In by Kersten and Daenschell. Hoping I'm pronouncing both names right. This was a disappointment. I mean, the book is for young adults. It's a young adult nonfiction history. And it reads very much like that. It's a very blitzing history of the world, with women playing a slightly more prominent role, ideally. But the problem is that a lot of the women. But the title is A History of the World with the Women Put Back In, which would imply that they were taken out of it. And a lot of the women that are featured very prominently in this book were never out of it in the first place. And I think maybe a more effective, particularly for the size of the book, would have been focusing more on the stories of the women who were taken out and are now being put back in. And maybe giving their history, the history of how they were taken out, and then the history of putting them back in, I think might have been a far more interesting and story. But I mean, it's basic. I mean, it's like a dipping in, reading bits of history here and there. But on the whole, I was rather disappointed. Also in the fact that there are some, I think, factual mistakes. Which might have been translator or okay. This is the, so there are various women on the cover. Harriet Tubman, Buzetienne, La Malinche, I think that's La Malinche, Hatshepsut, I think Christine de Pizan, and so little paragraph biographies are explaining who these women are. And so with a picture for Harriet Tubman, the runaway slave who wanted to stop people suffering like she had. Harriet Tubman escaped to Canada via the Underground Railroad, and then almost immediately turned around and began to work on it herself, becoming one of the most famous anti-abolitionists. Anti-abolitionists. It should read, one of the most famous abolitionists. Unless she was actually a double agent, which I don't think she was. And there's a bit on, I want to say, ancient Egypt, where the writers seem to imply that the reason why the term Pharaoh is used to denote the king of Egypt, or the kings of ancient Egypt, was because of Hatshepsut, one of the women who became king of Egypt. And I don't think that really holds much water, honestly. So, on the whole, I was quite disappointed, annoyingly enough. Oop. And I just knocked it against my desk. Okay. So, from A History of the World with the Women Put Back In, I decided to go ahead and finish one of the anthologies I've been reading over the course of this year. The Sword and Sorcery Anthology, edited by David G. Hartwell and Jacob Weisman. So, I read so I started with Undertow by Karl Edward Wagner, which I thought was really good. The Stages of the God by Ramsey Campbell was okay. The Barrow Troll, didn't particularly care for it much. Soldier of an Empire Unacquainted with Defeat by Glenn Cook was okay. Epistle from Lebanon by Michael Shea was good. Become a Warrior by Jane Yolen, I don't think quite worked. The Red Guild by Rachel Pollack. A Six from Atlantis by Gene Wolfe. The Sea Troll's Daughter by Caitlin R. Kiernan. The Coral Heart by Jeffrey Ford. Path of the Dragon by George R. Martin. The Year of the Three Monarchs by Michael Swanwick. Oh, lordy. So, on the whole, I really didn't particularly care for, I think the earlier stories in this book are far stronger than the later ones. The Tower of the Elephant by Robert E. Howard, brilliant. The Black God's Kiss by C.L. Moore, great. The Unholy Grail by Fritz Leiber, amazing. The Caravan of Forgotten Dreams by Michael Moorcock, amazing. I really liked Undertow, but a lot of the earlier stories were, I think, stronger than the later ones. And then I also read or attempted to read two comic book collections through e-reader. I checked them out the library's ebook section. Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson, and the first volume of the most recent Jessica Jones solo series, written by Brian Michael Bendis. I bailed on both. I didn't find the story in Invisible Kingdom compelling, and I hated the artwork. And as far as Jessica Jones was concerned, I hate that interpretation of her. Just, no. Doesn't work at all. So, anyway, I bailed on both. And then I pretty much read through the work week, Monday through today, the first part of Legends of the Condor Heroes, A Hero Born by Yong. This is fantastic. I love this book. There's a bit of plotting weirdness. So basically this novel takes place during the Song Jin Wars. The Song are the southern Chinese empire. The Jin are a northern empire, while predominantly Chinese are controlled by I think they would be the precursor to the Jurchens, who I think were a precursor to the Manchu, or related to the Manchu, who would be the Qing dynasty in the later parts of the Chinese imperial period. So basically this is the story of Guo Jing and Yang Kang, whose fathers are, and I will comment on the reasons for this after I do a quick plot synopsis. So, Guo Jing's father is Sky Fury Guo, and Yang Kang's father is Ironhawk Kang. And they are farmers living in Ox Village. One day they meet a Taoist monk who had recently assassinated a corrupt Song official called Chuji. After a brief conflict between the three, they become fast friends. After a group of corrupt soldiers attempt to arrest Chu. And Chu announces that both Lily Lee and Charity Bao, the wives of Sky Fury and Ironheart, are pregnant, that he would name the kids Jing Kang after an incident about a century earlier, and that if they were of the same sex, they would be sworn siblings, and if they were of the opposite sex or gender, they would be betrothed. Unfortunately, for this, life is not so simple, or fiction's not so simple. So when the monk leaves, Charity discovers that one of the soldiers wasn't killed, and she takes compassion on him and nurses him briefly, and then he returns months later with another force to kill her husband and her husband's best friend, and pretty much comfort the widow. And Lily's captured by one of the soldiers who's a prince of the Jinn, his associates, and she eventually winds up in Mongolia. Charity winds up married to him, and Chuji or Chu goes in search for them. He encounters, he figures out what happened and goes in pursuit of at least Lily Lee, and her kidnapper goes to his uncle and then to another, I think it's a Buddhist monk, and he, not really capable of fending off this enraged Taoist, goes to the 7 Southern Freaks, or the 7 Freaks of the South, who they then have a conflict over whether or not this guy's nephew's a villain, that he's kidnapped these women, and it turns into a typical meeting of superheroes who have to fight when they first meet, and then realize, oh, we've been tricked, and yeah, he's a bad guy after the bad guy. Yeah. So as part of pursuing these women, the 7 Freaks of the South will go after Lily Lee, because they know what she looks like, and the Taoist Chu will go after Charity. And then to settle this conflict they've had of whose kung fu is superior, they will basically train the children of Sky Fury Guo and Ironheart Yang, and in 18 years their students will meet at this inn and they will have a fight. And then 18 years pass, and Guo Jing is prominent amongst the Mongol tribes led by Temujin, who would become Genghis Khan. He's a sworn brother to one of Temujin's younger children. He's been trained by the 7 Freaks of the South. He's killed one of the most feared martial artists in the Wulin. And Yang King's been trained by Chiu, and then eventually they meet. So it's exciting. Ow. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Although, having finished A Hero Born and then kind of dipping in a little bit to the first chapters of A Bond Undone, I realized I might have made a bit of a mistake. Basically, this is not a novel. This is part 1 of a much larger novel, in the same way that The Fellowship of the Rings is not an individual novel. It is part 1 of a much larger novel, The Lord of the Rings. And so so A Hero Born and the other constituent parts of the Legends of the Condor Heroes is one super novel, which means I'm a part short. I really cannot read the entire novel because the fourth part hasn't been published yet. It will be published in January, and these books are very much not quite novels. This book ends on a cliffhanger that will be continued in the next chapter. So I'm thinking what I might do is I might dip into a Bond Undone and a Snake Lies Waiting and get a feel for them, and then when the final part comes out, A Heart Divided, in January, which I will pre-order probably sometime this coming month, in June. I think June or July is when I traditionally pre-order one of these. That I think in January I'm going to do a reading project where I will read the entirety of The Legend of the Condor Heroes in a serialized format. That I will figure out how exactly the book was first serialized, and then try to read it maybe on a weekly basis rather than what I normally do, which is pretty much devour a book in a few days, like just reading that book exclusively. I might say read this once a week or something, depending on what I discover, and yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. And I will let you know how it goes in January, hopefully. But definitely I highly recommend The Legend of the Condor Heroes. Okay, so moving on to what I will be reading next week, or starting tomorrow. I'm planning on starting either Dionysos, Archetypal Image of Indestructible Life by Karl Kerenyi. This is a scholarly book on Dionysos, which I've had for years. So I want to say I got this at Barnes & Noble when I was in high school. Don't ask. Another option I'm wanting to read this week is Anatomy of Criticism, 4 essays by Northrop Frye, one of the major works of literary criticism and literary theory. I picked this book up, I want to say when I was in San Francisco. I think, if I remember correctly, the English graduate student group were having a book sale, like a fundraiser, and they were selling books, and I went in and picked this up. I think I got this in The Complete Plays of Christopher Marlowe, although that one I probably should replace because it is falling apart. Anyway, but I've read Anatomy of Criticism before, and I'm quite looking forward to getting back to it. And if either I have the time or one of those books displeases me, I will start on a Carthage by David Soren, Aicha Ben, Abed Ben Kadir, and Heidi Slim. And I'm quite interested in Carthage. And I've been looking for more books on Carthage for years. And since I finished the anthology I was reading, I'm going to start a new one. It will be the Locus Awards, edited by Charles N. Brown and Jonathan Strahan. And this copy I bought a few months ago, and it came originally from Meridian Public Library. Not entirely sure where. See if I can find any further information. No, it doesn't say. It doesn't give me a state, but yeah. So I've read bits of this before. I checked it out from my local library and quite enjoyed it, and I've wanted it in my collection for a few years, so quite happy to have it, and am looking forward to reading it. Now, as far as watching movies and stuff on Netflix, I don't know if I'm going to start anything new today. I kind of want to try to catch the last bits of a painting marathon that Ginger Cook is doing. Will be her last quarantine quickie. That for the past 60 days she's been painting at least one painting, occasionally multiple paintings for over the course of 2 hours ish. And today will be the last day of the quarantine quickie. So probably after today, they'll go back to their regular Monday live stream. And I've watched some. I haven't watched all of them. I mean, yeah, it's daily, so. But I've enjoyed a lot of them. Ginger Cook is one of my favorite artists, particularly acrylics. If I don't decide to watch her, I might do some booktube, I don't know. Or I might start on Tales by Light. Or I could, if I want to, try to go ahead and take out The Punisher today and tomorrow, and then continue with the Ice Fantasy on Sunday. So, anyway, I'm going to call it an evening. Yeah, I've been rambling for almost 30 minutes. Sorry about that. But I will see you hopefully in a video on Monday. I'm going to try to do an original tag, but don't hold me to it. I'm still trying to work out the kinks. And if not, I'll definitely do a tag video on Tuesday. So until then, have a great weekend and stay safe. Thank you, BookTube.